This episode is made possible by purchasing resources through the Creation Science for Kids store.
Welcome to the Creation Science
For Kids
show. What would you praise God for if you had just had His help to rebuild your city and read the Bible for the first time? We have a look at Nehemiah and his people as they worship God. Then have a look at one of the evolutionists' favorite transitional organisms, feathered dinosaurs. And last but not least, we learn about the quiet workhorse sending power to your whole body, your heart. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart, in the company of the upright, in the congregation. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. Full of splendor and majesty is His work, and His righteousness endures forever. He has caused His wondrous works to be remembered. The Lord is gracious and merciful. Psalm 111, verses 1 through 4. This is episode 40 of the podcast where we learn about Jesus, our Creator, and His amazing world. Hi, I'm Sherry Fields, your host, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Joseph.
Hello.
And Stephen.
Hi.
To follow along with what we're looking at, check out the show notes, creationscience4kids.com/worship. Let's turn in our Bibles to Nehemiah chapter 9. If you've ever read the book of Nehemiah, the first part of it is about how he had heard way over serving the king of Persia that the city of Jerusalem was still all a mess. The walls that had been broken down long before by Nebuchadnezzar were still all in pieces and just rubble. So Nehemiah was able to go back and help his people. And it's really fascinating. There are a whole bunch of odd names, but when you read about them rebuilding, you see that lots of people built the section of wall right near their house, and almost everybody worked together. In fact, there's one guy that was too rich, and he just had his workers do it for him, and makes him look bad because everybody else was helping. But here in chapter 9, they've already finished the walls. God blessed and protected them from their enemies. And then the next thing they had done was to get out the copy of the Old Testament, the books of Moses, and read them, listen to them being read together as a whole people group. So if you look back in verse 1, they weren't terribly happy. They assembled with fasting and with sackcloth and earth upon them. That was a sign that they were doing what?
They were mourning and lamenting.
Mourning and lamenting. What do you think they were mourning for? Verse 2 says what was going on. And the seed of Israel, that's all the Israelite people, separated themselves from all strangers. Because if you read, some of them had married women that worshipped idols. So it wasn't that they were different people that God had trouble with. He liked Ruth, he liked Rahab, but he did not like people who wanted to worship their false gods. So they had made all those people go away and stood and confessed their sins and the iniquities of their fathers. So they realized by reading the Bible that they'd done a bunch of bad things that were making God very unhappy. So in verse 3, they stood in their place and read in the book of the law of the Lord their God 1/4 part of the day. Now that would be the daylight hours. So if you divide 12 hours into 4 parts, how many hours is 1/4? 3 hours. So they read the Bible 3 hours straight. And another 4th part, so another 3 hours, they confessed. They said, "Oh God, we've done this, we've done that, we've done the other thing," and worshipped the Lord their God. Then stood up upon the stairs of the Levites, Jeshua and a bunch of other guys with odd names, and cried with a loud voice unto the Lord their God. And the Levites said, oh, you want to read the rest of that, what they said?
Stand up and bless the Lord your God forever and ever, and blessed be thy glorious name, which is exalted above all blessing and praise. Thou, even thou, art Lord alone. Thou hast made heaven, the heaven of heavens, with all their hosts, the earth, and all things that are therein, the seas, and all that is therein, and thou preservest them all. And the host of heaven worshipeth thee.
Okay, and he goes on to thank him for how he'd protected them as they left Egypt and stuff. But what did he start out with? What was the first thing that they blessed God? What had God done that they found so amazing that they were worshiping?
He made the heavens, the sky.
Yeah, if you've noticed, it says the heaven and the heaven of heavens. So yes, one of them is the sky. Which one?
Just the heaven.
Just the heaven. And then outer space is the heaven of heavens. Okay, and all their host, what would those be?
Angels.
No, that would be the stars themselves and the galaxies. And the earth and everything on it. So that is what he praised him for. And not only did he make it, but what does he say near the end? Everything that's in the seas, and thou
preservest them all.
What's that mean?
It means to, like, if you have food or anything, you put it in the refrigerator or freezer to preserve it so that it won't rot.
Right. So when God's preserving the earth and everything in it, what's he doing?
He is saving it.
Stephen, got any ideas? By preserving them, he is
faithful.
Faithful to do what?
I don't know.
To keep them alive. God watches over everything from the little water bears and all the creatures in the ocean and all the things that live on land. He's the reason that everything hasn't gone extinct. And I love the very last phrase of all. What does it say, Stephen?
And the host of the heaven worshipeth thee.
What's that mean? What's the host of heaven?
I don't know.
The stars.
It's the stars. The host of heaven is the
stars.
Stars. And what do they do?
Worshipeth thee.
Who's thee?
Jesus.
Jesus. The stars worship. How do you think they worship?
They shine every night, and they shine all the time.
They shine. They obey his laws. I know there's some, like pulsars, that they can actually take the signals that they send out, and in outer space there's not air to hear sound, but we can turn it back into sound. I've heard star music. I'll have to find that for you to listen to, where the host of heaven is actually making sound. And Nehemiah and all these Levites said, the stars are worshiping God. Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you look in different places around the scriptures, the fact that God made everything is the foundation at the bottom of why we worship God. He's done all kinds of things for us, but if he never made us in the first place, we wouldn't need to worship him. First of all, we wouldn't exist. But if evolution and natural processes had made us without God,
then we wouldn't have to worship God because he didn't make us.
Right. That's what the atheists believe. They believe that people invented the idea of God, and they don't think they need to worship God because they think the world made itself. Now, that's just plain crazy when you look at how complex things are. But it is the fact that God is our creator that makes him worthy of us to worship him. Even if he had done nothing else for us, he would still deserve to be worshipped. And we thank Jesus that he's done far more than just create us and keep us alive. He came to be one of us and to make a way for us to be cleansed from our sin and to be part of God's family and live with him forever. That's just mind-blowingly incredible. But just the fact that he created us is enough that he is worthy of our worship. Now, we're going to take some time to listen to the second interview I collected at the Creation Research Society conference, and this is extra special. It's with a 10-year-old girl that I saw, and she was with her dad attending the conference, so I talked to her and I said, hey, would you like to come do an interview with me? And her dad was so nice. We had to go outside because the dining room where we were first talking was way too loud, and then the hallway was too echoey. And she came outside with me, and it stopped raining, so we got this mini interview. So let's listen. Could you tell me your name, please?
My name's Eliana.
I saw you yesterday, so have you been here for the whole conference?
I wasn't here on Thursday.
Sure, because I was just saying hi. But were you here all day yesterday, or did you leave early?
I was here all day yesterday.
Awesome. Wow. So you've attended a lot of different scientist talks, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind have you liked? Do you remember any that were interesting?
I like the one today, how I didn't know that dinosaurs had feathers.
Yeah, that one is like, I really wanted to catch that because it sounds like evolution, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But does a guy who was talking about it believe in evolution?
No?
No, so that's going to make us think. That's what this whole conference is for scientists to think and say, maybe things aren't the way we thought they were. Yeah, was there anything else interesting?
It was just cool seeing a picture of how so many trees, like, were in the river. Like there was just a picture of a ton of trees that, like, fell down.
Right, in that lake?
Yeah.
Yes, that's from Mount St. Helens. Have you learned about Mount St. Helens yet? I got to keep
Not very much.
Yeah, Mount St. Helens is really, really cool because it formed a mini Grand Canyon, and also that mudslide knocked all those trees and made the lake up there, and then we've been watching the trees, what's happening to them. It's really fun for creation geologists. I heard about one guy who studied Mount St. Helens for 7 years, and he decided to believe that Jesus meant what he said. He realized that the earth makes sense with the flood and what the Bible tells. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see those stumps yesterday, the fossil stumps?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what do you think of those?
Those are really cool.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite so far. And the other one was Dr. Clary's, where all the mega sequences, how the flood kept going up and down and up and down. Did you see that this morning early?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
That was cool. I haven't seen a tree fossil before, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and not with the roots in place. They don't talk about tree fossils very much.
Yeah.
There's a couple places. Maybe I'll put it in this episode when I put it up, talk about the fossil trees. Well, thank you, Eliana. It's been wonderful seeing you here, and I hope you have a great time. Thank you, Eliana, for giving me the chance to talk to you like that. Now, you may have noticed I did more talking than usual because she was kind of quiet. What do you think, Joseph?
It was a cool report.
Let's look at what she had to talk about. We learned about sedimentary layers across the globe, and Dr. Chafee was presenting on Africa, North and South America, and how it shows these huge waves and layers of sediment going across increasingly more of the continents until finally you could see practically everything had been underneath and still had sediments left. Some of it had been scraped off. So that was very cool. And then I wanted to show you the fossil trees that we saw because I'd never heard about these, and it's fascinating to think of some that would still have been in place from how they grew before the flood. So this is in Glasgow in Scotland. Look at this photo taken back in 1888. What does it look like?
A tornado came through.
A tornado? Or
a giant with a chainsaw.
Chainsaw? Yeah, it looks like a logging camp, but that's not what it is. There was a quarry, and they were digging the quarry down further to put in a road or something for this Victoria Park, and they ran into these stone trees, and they kept getting the softer stone out from around them until they'd expose them as if they were living. Now, if they'd done it today, they would have been far more careful with all the sedimentary layers as they exposed it. But you can see, especially in a black and white photo, it looks just like regular wood. Here's a photo, and I will have this in the show notes. They built a building over the top because they realized these fossils wouldn't last forever. But you can see, unlike almost every other fossilized tree, the roots look as if they were growing. These trees...
Look like octopuses.
Yeah, they do look kind of like octopuses.
With a bag on top of it.
Right. So this was really fascinating to learn about, that it looks as if they were buried, the bottom parts, the top was sheared away, but the bottom parts were buried right where they grew. All right, then she mentioned...
Feathered dinosaurs.
Feathered dinosaurs, yeah. I wasn't able to catch that one, and so I had to do quite a bit of research to find out, was there some new fossil that they ran into that was definitely a dinosaur and definitely had real feathers? And that doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, so here are what we actually find in the fossil record. We find things that we know for sure are dinosaurs, theropods, so in the T-Rex family where they walked on two legs. And we'll find where it looks kind of like fuzzy down or filaments. Some creation scientists think, and even secular scientists think, that this was actually the skin had decomposed some before it was fossilized, so the skin was actually fraying. But I had another thought. What are these pictures of?
Chinese dragon.
Chinese dragons. If you've ever been to a Chinese restaurant or looked at their fabric, how do they draw or depict their dragons? What do they have all down their back and around their heads?
Spines. They also look like snakes on legs.
Yeah, so Chinese dragons are very long and slender, twisty like that. But if you look at how they're decorated, they have all these frills and extra things. It's possible that's what we're finding on the fossils, because dragons, unless they had real ones to model, tended to be a memory of the dinosaurs that people had seen. And you remember, why would the Chinese call them dragons, but the scientists call the fossils dinosaurs? The word dragon is very old, and the word dinosaur was just invented less than 200 years ago. So like many other things, the scientists have a different name from what everybody else uses. So there's some good reason to think that real dinosaurs with 2 legs had all this extra frilly stuff, but they weren't slowly evolving into feathers. Then we find a lot of fossils like Archaeopteryx that have real feathers. And Archaeopteryx has teeth in its beak. But does that mean it's a dinosaur that has feathers and is learning to turn into a bird?
No.
No, a bird can have teeth. Just because there aren't any that survived that have teeth doesn't mean God couldn't have had birds that had teeth long ago. So that seems to be the 2 things we find. And there's one other thing besides actual bird fossils with feathers in it that makes the evolutionists think that for sure they found dinosaurs that were growing feathers. They found dinosaurs that have these little bump holes in their arm bones. Now, the place where we most often find those kind of bone bumps are on birds. A bird that is a strong flyer will often have these, where they're called quill knobs, and their stiff feathers that they need for flying will be anchored all the way down into the bone and held there so that it doesn't flop and let them just fall out of the sky as they're flying. So because they want these dinosaurs to be starting to turn into birds, they call them quill knobs. However, there are mammals that have similar bumps in their bones. And these are living mammals. Do they have feathers?
No.
Here's what an evolutionary paleontologist wrote a few years ago. Animals sometimes have weird, irregularly spaced tubercles arranged in lines on various of their bones, typically located on intramuscular lines. That animals sometimes have bumps like this that seem to be places for tendons to attach. He has seen them. Here's what he said. I've seen them on mammal bones and on theropod tibia. Tibia are down on the leg bones. So just because it has bumps doesn't make it a bird.
No.
Now, Dr. Elizabeth Mitchell over at Answers in Genesis said, even if dinosaurs had a feathery skin covering, and no such evidence has been found, and that's back in December of last year, would that prove they evolved into birds, or only show that something besides birds once had feathers? The latter, of course. Okay, here's one way of looking at it. What did the platypus evolve from? It's got a duck's bill and lays eggs, but it's got fur and is warm-blooded and makes milk. So, did it evolve from a duck or a mammal?
No, a duck got married to a beaver and they
No.
had
What really happened?
God designed it that way.
God designed it that way. So even if we were to find a theropod, the 2-legged dinosaur, with real feathers, that does not mean that it would be evolving into a bird. God could make something besides birds with feathers. But we really haven't found it yet. We've found things that they want to be a dinosaur evolving into a bird. All right, now it's time to hear from you. What do you have for us today, Joseph?
All about our heart. I wanted to do a report on the heart because I was at a VBS a vacation Bible school, and one of the lessons was about the heart. They had the lesson because they thought it was a cool way to worship God. Here's what I found out. The heart is an organ that is a special kind of muscle to pump blood for us to survive. Your blood carries water, oxygen, and food to every cell in your body. Then the blood gets rid of carbon dioxide and trash, like toxins and anything else that your body needs to get rid of. The blood vessels have 3 names. Arteries for the blood carrying fresh resources to the body, veins carrying the old stuff back to the heart, and capillaries carrying blood to and from all the tiny spaces in the body. Capillaries can be so small, only one red blood cell at a time can squeeze through. The heart pumps each blood cell around the body about once a minute. An adult's heart pumps about 5 quarts of blood through it each minute. The average heart beats 100,000 times a day, and in 70 years, it beats 2.5 billion, with a B, times. Your heart is about the size of your 2 fists tucked closely together. Remember, it's hollow to hold all that blood to squeeze out. This is interesting. Our heart really isn't on the left side of our chest. It's right in the middle, behind our sternum. That's the big bone right underneath your neck. But the bottom of the heart is tipped to the left, so that we feel our heart thumping on that side. The heart has 4 hollow spaces, called chambers, to collect and send out blood. The top two are called the atrium, like the tall open lobby of a large building. They receive the blood back into the heart. The bottom 2 are called the ventricles. They squeeze the blood out. First, the right side sends the used blood to the lungs to collect fresh oxygen. Then the left side sends the recharged blood back out to the body. To keep the blood from squirting out backwards, God gave the openings valves, something like one-way doors, to let the blood through, but not back in. The whole process for getting blood around your body is called the circulatory system. And why is this so important? Our brains are totally dependent on a constant blood supply. Even a few seconds without enough blood, like when you stand up quickly, can make you dizzy. And without enough blood sugar flowing to the brain, you can faint. Without fresh blood flow, our brains start to die in about 5 minutes. Hearts are cool. They work with blood all day, and they have lots of parts that all work together to help us. They are quietly working our whole life to take good care of us. God is an awesome creator to figure out how to make all this work for us.
That sounds really cool, Joseph. Thank you very much. Don't forget, you can find links to all the things we've talked about today by visiting the show notes page, creationscience4kids.com/worship or /040 for episode 40. While you're there, I'd like to ask for your help. If you know someone who might enjoy listening to this podcast and checking out my website, would you let them know for us? Every article I do, including today's show notes, has share buttons on the side to make it super easy for you to pass on to your friends on Facebook or by email. You have amazing power to help your friends find out the truth with just a click of a button.
Plus, if you want to encourage us, leaving the show a rating on iTunes is a great way to do that and help families looking for new podcasts to find us.
Thanks. Remember, I've published an ebook for kids explaining why people think the Earth is billions of years old and what you have to believe to think evolution can happen. It's only 35 pages long, but packed with info to help you understand the young Earth viewpoint. Mysteries of Space and Time is available for free on every e-reader platform. Visit my ebook page for the links. And I want to let you know my family has just signed up for schoolhouseteachers.com to take advantage of all their creation science, math, English, and all kinds of courses available for homeschoolers. If you sign up for your own family, click through for my shop page, and I will get an affiliate commission to help pay for this podcast. Thank you.
Do you like science? Got a subject you want to learn about? Or maybe you like telling stories?
If you send me a report, story, joke, or interesting idea, I might use it in a future show. Head over to creationscience4kids.com/podcast to contact me. Which reminds me, since I had to find a way to record interviews on my iPhone, I found a way that you can record things for me to share on the podcast. Super easy. What's great is it's not just for iOS, but also for Android. So if you have a smartphone, you can record audio just as well as I can. If you go to my podcast page, you'll see directions for just how to do it. And as I point out, the hardest thing is type in my email address. I'd love to hear from you soon, and it'll be fun to share what you've been learning about science and what God has made.
Well, this finishes up our show for today. Until next time, have fun treasuring our amazing universe and Creator.
Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Revelation 4:11.